communities and present, and recognize the harms of genocide and colonialism. We will make a conscious effort to reflect on the following questions as we advance through our business and contemplate changes in our community. And we recognize that achieving equity requires our commitment to an ongoing process. How can we seek to repair harm with our work and not erase history? How does our work impact the vulnerability and safety of people who hold many intersecting marginalized identities, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, people with disabilities, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, LGBTQ plus people? How can we prioritize and center people in our decision-making? How can we be more responsive to local needs? How can our work build community power and shared decision-making?
Great. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate that. So I'll, any excused absences, I guess we go through those again. I know Suzanne, we know Sheris. Was there any other that you know of, Hannah?
No, no one else.
Okay, great. I don't think we have any new members this time. I think, and we have a couple guests, Sean Egan and Aaron Convery are here with us as well. And I see some folks in our attendees section as well, some old friends. So thanks everybody for joining. Feel free if you have a moment to drop sort of any, if you're here, you know, you're introduce yourself in the Q&A for the attendees, or maybe the folks, BPAC members can just drop in the chat just their role with BPAC. Just for the sake of time, I think we're going to have a pretty full meeting today. So I will read out any questions that are sort of relevant to the whole group. But feel free to drop stuff in and we'll keep an eye on the chat. Yeah, and any openings that we need updates on, Hannah? Both youth positions are open now again, right? County and city.
So the city one is closed.
Okay.
An applicant applied, so we're waiting to see if that person was appointed on the youth representative side. The county youth representative is open, so people can apply to that now. And then on the city side, the one that is open is Dan's position, which is the Recreation, Urban Trails, and Greenways. That just opened and will be closing July 20th. Yeah. As long as some people apply. Otherwise it'll stay.
Yeah, that's sort of, that it's like a monthly cycle, right? Like if somebody applies, okay, it gets closed until their applications are reviewed. Okay, great. Any adjustments to the agenda for folks who had a chance to review it? I don't think I have anything either. We'll have a number of sort of community updates. I think that'll be relevant, but that can all go into community updates. And then for folks who had a chance, hopefully, to review the minutes from last month, pull it up here just for good measure. Any adjustments to the minutes from May? Going once. In that case, if someone would make a motion to approve the minutes from May.
I move we approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, great. All in favor of approving the minutes from May?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. All opposed? I'm not seeing anything, hearing anything. Okay. Thank you all. The minutes from May are approved. Thanks, Mike, as always, for putting those together for us. Okay. I'm going to go off screen share just so I can look more closely at the chats. So we have a question from Mary Rose. This is sort of public comments. I wanted to give some time here for folks who might have public comments. Mary Rose is in the attendees. She says, are the Duke liaison and bicycle community county side positions already being considered by the county clerk? Like, do we know if they're being reviewed yet, Hannah, or is that
I think they're going to be reviewed soon. I just talked with the county clerk today, and she said that they're gonna, I think there were a few people for both. So they're going to be pulled and brought to them soon. But they are closed, so no one else can apply for those.
Okay, so I guess they are being considered currently with the existing applicants. Any other public comments or questions? Folks, feel free to throw them into the Q&A. Giving a moment here. Not seeing anything. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, folks, for those who are joining on the attendees. I'll just say the list out loud, just in case it's folks who can't see that. Brian Taylor's here with us, David Miller, Eric Vitale, Mary Rose Fontana, Nathan Lee, and Robin Young. Thanks all. Just feel free to throw in any questions if anything comes up. All right. And then I think we're ready to hand it off to you, Sean. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you coming. Obviously, we're always very interested in what the transportation department's up to. So looking forward to the presentation.
Great. So I really appreciate the invitation to come. My name's Sean Egan. I'm the Director of Transportation for the City of Durham. If I look a little damp to any of you on the screen today, it was a tough day to be a bicycle commuter in Durham today, but I powered through. So hopefully I'll not be so waterlogged after this, but it was a good lesson in some of the pitfalls of becoming a bike commuter here in Durham. It's great to be back with the BPAC. I wanted to just take note that next week, at the end of this month, we'll be celebrating the retirement of Dale McKeel. And I wanted to make sure that just took the opportunity to recognize Dale's extraordinary work supporting BPAC, but also advancing critical projects for Durham. Dale was instrumental in the $9 million RAISE grant we received in 2021 for the Durham Rail Trail project. And Dale's contributions to our bicycle and pedestrian network will benefit our community for decades to come. So as he steps away from his role at the MPO, I talked to him today and said, I really hope that he'll continue to be a resource we can count on to share his extensive knowledge and expertise. It's also great to see Hannah Reynolds step into her new role supporting BPAC and making sure that our plans and projects reflect the input of the dedicated commission members assembled here. And as was noted at the beginning, I'm joined today by a number of our dedicated city transportation staff. So we'll just do a brief agenda overview. We'll start with a brief overview of the department where we've made some organizational changes recently, and then look back on what we've accomplished over the last year and look ahead to what we hope to achieve next year. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet the transportation department. We have an org chart here with lots of pictures on it. And it gives you a sense of how we've structured the department with some of the organizational changes that we've been making. So our work is led by two assistant directors. Bill Judge manages infrastructure development, traffic operations, and safety. And Evian Patterson manages our parking operations, as well as our new mobility division that plans and oversees Go Durham Transit Services. Our business services division, led by Tom Devlin, is responsible for developing.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you real quick. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I don't see the slides on my end. I think the screen share stopped. I'm not sure if anyone else is having that issue.
Yeah, I think so. I think it stopped just a couple minutes ago, Sean.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Sean. Just the org chart that you're describing, I don't think anyone can see right at this exact moment. So maybe
can you try to, are you able to share it, or is anyone else?
Let me see if I can.
For me.
Let me see.
Seeing it
I'm
at
trying
the
to.
beginning, so it worked for a moment at least.
Hannah, if you're not able to pull it up on your end, I can try on my end.
Okay. Yeah, it was showing for me, so I don't know what's happening. If you have it up,
Yeah,
since you're
here,
a
give me
panelist, you
one
should be able
sec.
to.
We want you to see all these pictures of our wonderful staff.
Can y'all see the
There we
presentation
go.
now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
let
we
me
see it
get
now.
to
It's-
So
the,
around number 4, I think. Yeah.
here we go.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Our business services division, led by Tom Devlin, is responsible for developing our budget and the contracts, agreements, and agenda items we bring to City Council. In previous years, this chart has shown as many as 13 full-time positions for the Durham Chapel Hill Scarborough Metropolitan Planning Organization, DCHC-MPO, which has been housed with the City Transportation Department for more than 40 years. In order to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of regional planning, the DCHC-MPO board voted earlier this year to move to the Triangle J Council of Governments, TJCOG, starting in fiscal year 2024. And last month, the City Council approved an agreement with TJCOG, which was recently rechristened the Central Pines Regional Council, to enable that transition. So those MPO staff positions are no longer shown in our org chart. 2 new positions included in the FY 2024 proposed budget that is up for a vote tonight at the City Council chambers are a Vision Zero coordinator to advance the goal of 0 fatalities and serious injuries on our transportation network, and a new mobility services planner to guide the implementation of new transit routes and improve frequency made possible with support from the Durham County Transit Plan. On the next slide, you'll see that transportation's work requires close collaboration and partnerships with other city departments, in particular the ones marked here with stars. We rely on the expertise of neighborhood improvement services to embed equitable community engagement strategies in our plans and projects. We review transportation impacts of development plans in the site plan process led by City County Planning. Budget management services reviews our funding requests, and we rely on the finance department to make cash available for our grant funded projects where we can only be reimbursed after we've spent the money. We review plans for water main work our water management department is doing in our roadways, as well as resurfacings done by Public Works to identify opportunities to improve multimodal facilities through these projects to expedite project delivery, reduce costs, and minimize disruption in our community. For many of our projects, particularly trails, transportation develops plans and identifies funding, and then we hand it off to our partners in general services for design and construction, after which the facility becomes operated by the Parks and Recreation Department. When we have news to share, good or bad, communications helps us to get the word out. Consultation and communication with our partners is critical to our success in developing a multimodal transportation network for Durham. So some of our FY23 highlights, we completed the Better Bus Project. So our Better Bus Project looked at every aspect of the transit experience in Durham to improve the infrastructure and services transit riders use every day. Bus stops are critical, as are the sidewalks and crosswalks riders use to get to and from them. And an analysis of our network also showed where buses are getting slowed down or stuck as we work to improve bus speed and reliability. Our Irwin Road project incorporated best practices in bicycle facility design on a state roadway while also improving pedestrian safety. This illustrates what's possible when we routinely review our partners' resurfacing plans and identify the best opportunities for multimodal improvements. I'm happy to report that the proposed budget up for a vote tonight provides the resources to continue this programmatic approach to capitalizing on resurfacing projects for multimodal improvements. In April of this year, work began on a new sidewalk at South Alston Avenue between Cap Street and Riddle Road. The sidewalk will measure about 0.4 of a mile in length and will provide a continuous pedestrian access along South Alston Avenue and connect the American Tobacco Trail to this area of the city. The sidewalk is scheduled for completion in January of next year. An additional pedestrian project to fill in sidewalk gaps in several locations throughout Durham will soon be underway. The project includes sidewalk gaps on Leon Street, Hunt Street, South Elm Street, Lumley Road, Pickett Road, and South Cheek Road, which were identified in the 2017 Bike Walk Implementation Plan. Construction is expected to begin this month and will be completed in early 2024. One of our most exciting innovative projects was the Bully Bike pilot. So in 2018, Durham was awarded a Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge grant to test drive alone commute reduction strategies. The team used a human-centered approach that focused on equity and transportation access to launch several pilots, including the Bully Bike pilot in 2022. Unlike traditional TDM initiatives that focus on high-income individuals with ready access to a vehicle, the Bully Bike program sought out workers from the hospitality sector, which was severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and used electric assist bikes, or e-bikes, as a way to improve transportation access and reduce transportation costs for low-income workers, many of whom did not have reliable access to a car. The program ran from August through November of 2022. And downtown hospitality workers were able to use the e-bikes for a minimum of 4 weeks for both work and personal trips in exchange for sharing information about their experience and tracking their travel with a smartphone app. Participants received training on the e-bike, accessories, a commute tracking app, and a custom fitting of their helmet and bike. We also worked with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory to create a public dashboard to share the data from this project. Over 300 individuals applied for this program. 61 were selected to participate in 7 cohorts. Of the participants, 74 presented as reported as non-white or Caucasian, 29% as non-binary, gender non-conforming, or transgender. The median household size was 2 persons with a household income of $40,000, and 40% of participants report working 2 or more jobs. So what were the results? Participants confirmed more than 1,100 e-bike trips, the majority of which were commuting to and from work. E-bike trips replaced 2,916 miles of travel, and over 1,000 miles of drive-alone vehicle travel was eliminated. The pilot delivered a new mode of transportation for a diverse group of Durham residents, and findings showed trends in reducing carbon emissions, increasing mobility, improving health and well-being, and providing economic relief. So those were some of our highlights from the last year. And now we'll be looking ahead to what we can accomplish in 2024. So the neighborhood bike routes program will span 7 miles in the downtown area. These bike boulevards will be located on low volume, low speed streets. The goal is to help bicyclists more safely navigate to nearby destinations such as parks and schools. Neighborhood bike routes will be identified with arrows on the pavement. Additionally, blue signs with Durham neighborhood bike routes branding will help people navigate the routes. New pedestrian crosswalks will also be added at some intersections. Traffic calming measures, including neighborhood traffic circles and painted curb bulb outs, will also be installed as part of the project. Residents are encouraged to visit the neighborhood bike routes webpage to see corridor locations. These routes were identified using the 2018 Neighborhood Bike Routes Analysis and Concept Plan, which explains how the routes were identified, major route destinations, and describes the local land features. The Bike Routes project is funded with a federal grant from the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program and a local match from the City of Durham. We're also moving forward with bike lanes. So construction of new bike lanes will follow the completion of the neighborhood bike routes. Bike lanes will be striped within existing roadways, in some cases reducing the number or width of existing vehicle travel lanes. Where space is available, buffers will be striped on pavement between bike lanes and vehicle travel lanes. The work will also include restriping some pedestrian crosswalks. Full list of the new bike locations, boundaries, and lane configurations is available online on the City Transportation website. The new bike lanes are funded also with a congestion mitigation and air quality grant for $1 million of federal funds matched with city funds. And construction is expected to begin this summer and be completed by the end of the calendar year. For FY 2024, our proposed budget advances key priorities for the department, adding a full-time Vision Zero coordinator and funding traffic calming studies in underserved neighborhoods through the Equitable and Green Infrastructure Program. The budget enables the transition to direct contract management of Go Durham fixed route bus and access transit services with additional staff support for our system expansion plans, clear lines of accountability, and incentives to improve performance for our customers. We continue to strengthen capital project delivery, thanks to 3 staff positions added in FY 2023 to advance transit, bicycle, and pedestrian infrastructure as we build out a multimodal transportation network for our community. Promoting equity is foundational to this work as we improve mobility options for transportation disadvantaged residents with increased investment focused on infrastructure and services for people of color, low wealth households, and residents without access to a car. So our grant management strategy and our federal grant funding approach is guided by the 3 zeros we're committed to reaching: 0 emissions, 0 fatalities and serious injuries, and 0 disparity in transportation access for residents, as we know that factors such as race, income, and ability influence access to opportunities and place opportunities out of reach for far too many residents in Durham. This approach aligns closely with the U.S. Department of Transportation's commitment in the Justice 40 initiative to deliver 40% of the benefits of transportation investments to historically disadvantaged communities. So transportation continues to aggressively pursue competitive federal grant funding for investments in the equity and sustainability of our transportation network. Since the enactment of the bipartisan infrastructure law in November 2021, we have secured federal awards for the Rail Trail, R. Kelly Bryant Bridge Trail, Durham Station, and zero emissions buses with a combined value of more than $30 million. Like Alexander Hamilton, we will never be satisfied, so we continue to pursue federal grants to address critical needs in our community. We have 2 grant applications pending for our Holloway Transit Corridor, and we're developing a multi-year plan for additional projects to enable them to compete for programs that prioritize readiness. So looking ahead, we're going to be undertaking a bike walk plan update. We're doing this jointly with our partners in Durham County. We're looking at making sure that we have clear priorities for our bike ped projects and that we have the appropriate project elements that incorporate the best features in facility design, and all of those are incorporated into the state's comprehensive transportation plan. And this will enable us to get as many improvements as possible funded and completed through the state's Complete Streets initiative. We're also undertaking, hopefully with approval by the City Council tonight, a study of the Durham Freeway. So we received funding through the DCHC MPO for this study from the East End Connector to the Swift Avenue interchange. The freeway was initially built during the 1970s to provide a high-speed vehicle connection from Research Triangle Park to central Durham. The freeway's entire length is classified as a limited access freeway linking the East End Connector with Interstate 85 through downtown Durham. The freeway's path through Durham, when constructed, destroyed well-established African-American communities such as Durham's Hayti community. And as a result, African-American businesses, homes, and places of worship were separated or demolished, and residents were permanently displaced. Today, the Durham Freeway serves as a primary route through Durham with between 44 and 87,000 vehicles driving the corridor every day. However, the impact on adjacent communities can still be felt, and NC 147 represents a significant barrier to access for many Durham residents. A community-led study to reconnect communities in central Durham adjacent to the corridor is critical to best determine the type of corridor needed for this area. The study aims to acknowledge and evaluate the impacts of the Durham Freeway, reimagine the future character of the corridor, and reconnect vital communities in the heart of Durham. Our goal with this planning effort is to inform a potential federal grant application, such as for the Reconnecting Communities program, if consensus can be reached on a proposed concept for the freeway. With that said, we understand that, as author Adrienne Marie Brown describes, we, quote, move at the speed of trust, end quote. And in this community, there is extensive distrust of government institutions and transportation projects and plans in particular that we must confront before any decisions can be considered on the future of the freeway. Any application would need to be the result of robust and equitable community engagement, and this process will take time and must not be rushed. The department has also committed to engaging with community partners. So we've hired Idealisms with subcontractor ICIT Excelsior, doing business as Be Connected Durham, and they are under contract for this work. They've participated in the development of the scope for the technical services, and Angel ICIT Dozier participated in the selection process for our professional services firm. So our contract was presented at the City Council work session earlier this month, and is going for final approval and authorization to City Council tonight. So we're hopeful that that will be approved. And throughout this process, we intend to remain engaged with our stakeholders, including Durham County, the DCHC MPO, Go Durham, Go Triangle, and NCDOT throughout the course of the study. So with that, how am I doing on time, Hannah? I can't see your clock.
You're doing great.
All right, so I'm ready for Q&A. Hannah promised me that we'd wrap up in time for me to tuck the kids in to bed, right, Hannah?
Yes, I think you'll be good. Thank you.
All right, do you want to moderate this, or does the chair moderate? How does?
I'll just, even if I don't have much to moderate directly, I'll just say thank you, Sean, first. And it's a very interesting, to hear sort of some of these things we've seen tidbits of over the last year, and sort of see the updates, and then also see what's coming around the corner. I appreciate that. There's a lot of stuff in this presentation that's, I think, I'm sure all of us kind of thinking. Especially the e-bike, the bully bike plan, like, it was really interesting and nice to hear the kind of data that came out of that. That was nice, kind of a very sort of discrete experiment that was run, and it's interesting to see the results of that, and kind of a good experiment run there, I think. A lot of questions I have, I'll sort of invite folks through the Q&A or to raise their hand in the Zoom call. I wanted to just throw in one question I had. For the resurfacings, you were saying that there was some, maybe I didn't catch it exactly, but there's some sort of hope to carve out a budget to do more, like to make a better effort, or a sort of stronger effort to use resurfacings to redesign the streets. Is that what you were saying, or what's sort of the idea of what you're talking about there?
We've kind of been scrambling for the last couple of years. We would look at the resurfacing list that came out, and we would say, boy, we probably should do something here on Irwin Road, or we should do something on Guest Road. But we didn't have a dedicated funding source to do that. So we'd be kind of scrambling to try to pull together some funding, and then we'd try to pull together a scope of work for consultants to support us. And we were able to make some improvements, but we certainly learned through that process that if we're going to take the most possible advantage of these resurfacings, we have to plan ahead, and we have to line up the funding and the contract authority early on in the process, so that we can make sure that we're conducting robust community engagement, and that any data collection or design revisions that are required by NCDOT, that we have the time to be able to get that public input and make any changes that are needed from our stakeholders. So we put in our capital improvement plan request this year, funding that is again in the budget for tonight, but our goal with this is to have that be an annual funding allocation, so then we can make sure that we get the scope of services out early, we get design support under contract kind of at this point of the year, as soon as the funding is approved. And then we're doing all of this work in most cases in anticipation of the 2024 summer construction season. So in the past, we haven't gotten started until December or January, and that puts us in a real time crunch. So what we're trying to do now is to say, all right, let's get in front of this. Let's plan. We know that there are these lists for water management and public works and NCDOT resurfacings. We need to take a programmatic approach to this, line up the dollars, be ready with the contractual support that we need, and give ourselves the time to get the most possible benefit out of these resurfacing projects. The nice part about it is that if you line up the dollars for the design concepts and the engagement, the cost of pavement markings is free. So typically we would have to mill up pavement. We'd have to remove the old pavement markings and then put down a whole new set. As long as we can get our partners satisfied with the concept plan and the layouts that we're doing, we basically get free pavement markings. So that's for bicycle facilities, crosswalks. And so it's a great opportunity for us to leverage that public investment in our resurfacing program.
Yeah, you're sorry, just to be clear, you are including the state maintained resurfacings in this.
We are, yeah. So we're really looking across NCDOT roadways like Irwin, and Guess Road is NC 157 is in our plan right now. We've been doing some engagement around that, but then also looking at where Public Works, City Public Works is doing a resurfacing, or where there's a major water management project like the American Tobacco District campaign that they've been doing for the last couple of years. So anywhere there's an opportunity with resurfacing or major roadway construction by those partner agencies, we want to get the most possible benefit.
Great. I'm going to just pull in one from the Q&A that's relevant to this conversation. Nathan was asking, why do you have to hire consultants for new pavement markings? Why can't it just be done in-house? Yeah, what's the sort of reasoning for that?
So some of it is data collection. Some of it is engagement support. We've tried the approach of having all of our in-house staff do this. And what that means is that rather than look at maybe 3 or 4 corridors every year, we can potentially look at one and keep our other projects moving forward. So we want to be able to respond quickly when we get comments from one of our partners, for example, and contracting the work gives us access to the staff, so that the contracted staff, so that when we have peak workloads, they can bring in extra hands and expertise to get the work delivered. So that really works as a force multiplier for our engineering staff. Our engineering staff are providing direction and making the final decisions about city transportation priorities. And the contractors are there to do a lot of the technical work to support them and allow them to accomplish a great deal more in the same amount of time.
Makes sense. I have a couple more in the Q&A, but let's move to Ed, who had his hand up.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for being here. The city recently took over the contract with National Express Transit for operating the Go Durham Access Paratransit. Can you speak to what the expectations or hopes are, the incentives are moving forward, and how that change is going to impact and hopefully enhance or improve GDA service?
Sure. So we've had since 2010 an arrangement with Go Triangle, where Go Triangle was responsible for contracting for both our Go Durham bus fixed route services as well as our Go Durham access services. And what we've determined over the last year, really a couple of years, is that it's very difficult to have clear lines of accountability for performance with that structure, where Go Triangle was in a management role, but not in a decision-making capacity with respect to things like funding and strategic priorities. And so what we experienced was that there was a lot of confusion about who was responsible for the services. And then when things went wrong, it wasn't clear yet who was really responsible. So what we want to do with the direct contracting is to make it very clear that the City of Durham Transportation Department is responsible for the quality of the services that we provide and the experience of our customers. And so we are setting very clear expectations with the contractors for these services about key performance indicators that are critical to the success of our service. So looking at our on-time performance, for example, which for Go Durham Access for most of the last year has been very poor. Much of that has to do with staffing and getting enough operators to drive those access vehicles. We've, over the last year, almost doubled the active staff. We were at about 21 a year ago. We're at 40 today. We really should be into the 50s in terms of staffing. So there's a lot of work that we're still pressing National Express to do to improve recruitment. They ratified a new contract with workers that had significant improvements in pay and benefits. So that went into effect earlier this year. And so we're seeing some of the results from that in terms of helping our recruitment, but we're also trying to take advantage of resources that these contractors have from other cities where they operate. So look at where else they are in service, what technologies, what innovations. We introduced the UServe program with Go Durham Access, which operates essentially like an Uber or a Lyft trip that's booked through the Go Durham Access service. So that was an innovation that National Express brought as part of their proposal. But unlike Uber and Lyft, the drivers in the UServe program have extensive training in the transportation needs of people with disabilities, and they're also subject to Federal Transit Administration drug and alcohol screening. So we have better training and better safety in place for our riders on the Go Durham Access system as a result of this contract. And then we're also right now, Brian Fahey, who leads our mobility services division, has put together a task force to look at paratransit service improvements. So we have to get to providing a high quality base level of service, but then we're on a path right now to be able to do that. What are some of the additional things that we could be doing? One of the things that we've heard a lot from our riders about is same day bookings. So right now you have to book your trip a day in advance. So if you go to the doctor's office and they refer you to somewhere else to get a test, you can't book that the same day. You have to wait and take that trip the next day. So what would it take for our system to be able to accommodate same-day bookings? And then one of the other areas is having better integration and coordination across the Triangle Region's transit network. So right now, if you're going from Durham to a location in Chapel Hill that's served by Chapel Hill Transit, but not Go Triangle, you have to take a bus. You have to take one of the Go Durham Access buses to New Hope Commons in front of the Walmart there, and then transfer and then wait for a Chapel Hill Easy Rider bus to come and take you. You can't do that in one single trip. So how do we make it simpler and easier and improve the experience for our riders? So that's what the task force has been doing. They've solicited consultant services to be able to develop implementation plans for some near-term service improvements. And that work is going to be getting underway this summer. And the task force will, which consists of staff from City Transportation, staff from Go Durham Access, National Express, as well as stakeholders like Durham County, and the most important riders who use the Go Durham Access service every day. And I think, Ed, you're on that task force. Am I right?
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I'm very impressed with Brian's commitment and sort of forward-thinking approach to dealing with the GDA. So yeah, it's been a good experience. I think things are going to take a turn for the better as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your service helping us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Sean, for that. I'm going to kind of bounce through a few. Jeff, I'll get to you in one moment. I want to get to these in the Q&A. For the bully bike pilot, one of the attendees asks, as a follow-up for that pilot, will there be bike shares in Durham or something similar to provide access to e-bikes in the community? I think we'd be interested to hear what the sort of ramifications are, right?
So I was in Chapel Hill in October on the UNC campus, and Spin, which operates scooters here in Durham, has e-bikes in Chapel Hill on the UNC campus. We have opened up our shared active transportation systems permitting process where providers are allowed to bring in e-bikes the same way that they bring in scooters. We haven't had any of the operators take us up on that yet, but as we look at the future of that program, working with the vendors to incentivize them to provide an array of micromobility tools is going to be a high priority for us. So we're transitioning that program right now. We have a new planner who started orientation today, who's going to be taking over the micromobility and then also looking. So the way that I think about it is that, we have kind of a general population that's interested in micromobility devices. And then we also have some of our transportation disadvantaged residents who, for whom that first mile and last mile, getting to and from a transit trip, that first mile, last mile presents a real barrier for them. So what we're trying to do is for the kind of general population to work with the micromobility providers to enable them to provide more choices in the marketplace. And then for the city-owned bikes like the e-bikes to try to develop a program to connect those with folks who have transportation disadvantages and needs, and really focus that on underserved residents. How exactly we're going to accomplish all of that, I don't know yet, but we've hired some really smart folks. Jenny Green, our mobility services planning manager, just started in April, and Emma started in orientation today on the planning team there. So we're going to really look to build on the success of the Bully Bike program and continue to work to make more micromobility options available across Durham.
Thanks, Sean. Sounds like we could poke spin a little bit and see if they'll bring their bikes over too. Right?
Yeah, why are they bringing them to Chapel Hill and not Durham?
Right.
That's outrageous.
Okay, I know time's tight here, Jeff. I'll go and then we'll sprint through the Q&A questions after that. But
just two quick points. When you talked about the restriping, one thing that I'd like to see more focus on is actually reducing lane width. There was a project on Club Boulevard by Club Boulevard Elementary about 5 years ago. Pete Nicholas was the transportation person, and we were able to get them to reduce the when they restriped it, the lane width, and that was a simple way to slow down traffic without having to do things like crosswalks or bike lanes. The second thing, in terms of Go Durham, something that I've brought up numerous times to Go Triangle over the years, is I think they could really make a big improvement by changing the schedule. Right now, buses arrive and leave on the hour and the half hour. And most people who work downtown Durham a lot start their shift on the hour or the half hour, but they're within about a 10-minute walk of Durham Station. So if the schedule was just changed to have bus arrivals and departures on the 15 minutes and the 45 minutes, that would be so much more convenient for people who start on the hour or the half hour, because then they'd have time to get from Durham Station to their work or from their work to Durham Station rather than just missing the bus.
So that's really helpful input. We are looking very closely at lane widths as part of the resurfacing project. We have narrowed lane widths, and in some cases even dropped a lane in some of our recent projects. So those are really great opportunities for us. We are also we're moving back to the Route 2 operating on that 15 and 45 for Go Durham. And one of the really key initiatives in the Durham County Transit Plan is increasing frequency across our services. So building out that 15-minute frequent service network so that you're not having to wait until the top or the bottom of the hour. We really want to be advancing 15-minute service, particularly connecting up to north of Interstate 85 to the Duke Regional Hospital area, the Bragtown area. We know there's a great deal of demand there, and it's really, we should be having 15-minute service connecting downtown to North Durham. So as we bring on more and more of that 15 minutes, and then on the Holloway corridor, Route 3, we have 15-minute service right now on the trunk of the corridor, but it's crowded. We need probably closer to 10-minute service. So as we continue to build the frequency with the funding from the Durham County Transit Plan, that'll enable us to serve folks with different work schedules. But I'll pass that feedback along to Jenny and our planning team.
And obviously, when you do 15-minute headways, that it becomes a moot point. I'm just thinking in the interim, it could really help a lot of people if you did that, again, because shifts start on the hour and the half hour for a lot of folks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. I think this is a good topic to wrap up on. Mayma, I see your question. I'm going to defer it to after we wrap up with Sean, because I think it's more about BPAC and a request sent to BPAC. So one other question was regarding the Durham Freeway / Fayetteville Corridor study area. Have conversations with the Hayti community and surrounding residents begun, or is that happening in the future?
So we worked closely with Angel Isidosier and the Fayetteville Street Fellows on the Better Bus project and got really strong engagement in 2021 and 2022. We're working hard to move away from the model where when we have a project, then we come out and talk to you, and then we go away for 10 years and you never see us again. And then when we have another project in your area, we've worked to really develop the community partners program with partners like the Fayetteville Street Fellows to build their organizational capacity, and that we continue an ongoing conversation with our community partner groups. So it's not that we start engagement and then when we hit a certain phase in the project, engagement ends. It is really more of a continuous conversation. And so that allows us, for example, to talk, in 2022 about the Fayetteville Transit Corridor improvements, but we're having a lot of this similar conversations. We've built relationships so that as we move into the NC 147 project, we're not starting from scratch. We've built relationships with folks around Hayti and along the Fayetteville Street corridor. And we've built the most important asset that we build is trust with these communities. So this is that is at the heart of the approach that we're taking to the 147 study, is to build on that experience that we had with Better Bus and continue those conversations and make sure that we're growing the share of the community that we're engaging in those conversations, because our ability to reach consensus as a community is really going to depend on that trust and the effectiveness of that community engagement.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. It does sound like if the Durham if the NC 147 study budget passes, right, there'll be a lot of sort of next steps there that I think these questions will get further answered there. I think I'll kind of just throw back in a couple points just to reiterate them on behalf of BPAC. I think that Durham Freeway study obviously is very interesting to us and very relevant. We'd love to sort of be kept in the loop on that. I think for the resurfacing we were talking about at the beginning, I also do think, being able to leverage BPAC as sort of a resource to, I think it's the kind of task we're willing to take on, is to like look at these resurfacings and give our kind of analysis, right? We know people that maybe live near there and are sort of have eyes on the street, so to speak, on these different streets in Durham. So if there's a place where you're publishing kind of, we're in the design phase or we're about to be in the design phase for this resurfacing, I think it'd be great to have a sort of public channel through which we can be plugged into that. And then the bike walk plan, of course, is very relevant for us. I want to hear the next steps on that. We can get a chance to ask about it. But I think that is all I have right now. And I know it's probably bedtime for your kids. Any final questions from anyone in the committee or the commission or the attendees? Well, hey, go ahead, Kai.
Sorry, I did have one question. Hey, Sean, with the move of the MPO over to TJ Cog, do you anticipate any adverse effects that would arise from that move?
We have benefited tremendously from, for example, service planning support from Go Triangle over the last 12, 13 years. And we are losing access to that support through this change. I think the good news is that their transportation planning, their transit planning supervisor for Durham, Jenny Green, has come over and joined our team and gives us the opportunity to build up our staff. We certainly want to make sure that we also continue to think about the coordination of the Go Durham, the blue buses, and the Go Triangle green buses. Many of our riders are moving back and forth between those services. What I worry about is by having separate planning staffs, you could get to a point where that becomes a really burdensome, and there's a time transfer penalty that our riders are facing because we're not coordinating those blue buses and green buses effectively, particularly at Durham Station. So that's a risk.
Yeah.
I've had really good conversations with the leadership team at Go Triangle that they don't want to see that happen. So they're committed to continuing to work closely with our service planning team to make it as seamless as possible transition and transfer process for the riders. But that's one of the things that I do worry about. I don't want the riders to suffer as a result of this, particularly those transferring between the green buses and the blue buses. But we've got a strong commitment from our partners at Go Triangle, and our team is ready to work collaboratively with them.
Appreciate that.
I'll throw in, for those like me who don't always know, Triangle J, Council of Governments, is what TJCOG stands for, and I believe it's an organization that represents a number of counties. So not just Durham, but a number.
And they changed their name to make it even more confusing. They're now the Central Pines Regional Council as of last week, I think. But they do a lot of land use planning and modeling across the central part of North Carolina. And we work closely with them on how land use modeling and transportation modeling come together. So there are a lot of efficiencies in having the co-location of the DCH, the MPO staff on the transportation modeling, working with the land use model teams at Central Pines Regional Council, formerly TJCOG.
Yeah, all right. Another one to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you coming in. Yeah, I mean, if there are any final comments, but thanks, Sean. Thanks, Aaron. I know Eric and Brian are here as well.
We've got a really strong team. I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished in the last year, and we're going to do even bigger and better going forward. And that's a testament very much to the strength of our staff. We're in a great position to make a huge impact with this work. Special thanks to all the staff who are joining us here for all the work that they've done to get us here, and the work that lies ahead. It's going to be a really exciting time for us.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. And
thanks.
Yeah, have a good
night. Time to tuck those kids in.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and good night. And those who are here for the presentation, you're welcome to stay on. We won't be offended if you step off. We talk about things that are relevant, of course. So feel free to stay on. But if not, thanks for being here and have a good night. Yeah, Mayma, I'm seeing your question, just FYI. I think maybe that's a good time. Maybe we'll get to that question, if you don't mind, after we do the committee reports. I think that'll be a good sort of moment to talk about the sidewalk gap on Farrington Road. And just FYI, I did receive the email, and it's something that we can discuss more in a moment. But for now, let's move to the, yeah, thanks, Mayma. We'll move to the committee reports. So Suzanne is not here today, but Tripoli, she did send some updates. I can pull those up here. And I'll read through them. I know that I was only there for 30 minutes of the meeting, unfortunately, but so Hannah and Ed and anyone else who was there can feel free to supplement, but I'll just go through her notes real quick. So Mary Rose, who's with us today is an attendee, she was also at the Tripoli meeting, gave an update on the week without driving. So she's doing a lot of work with Bike Durham. Yeah, she's on the advocacy committee there and pretty involved there, and maybe we'll learn more about that soon enough. But so she was kind of giving us some updates via Bike Durham, is my understanding anyway. So there was a week without driving is October 2nd through 8th. There are a couple of links that I'll share relevant to that in the chat. It'll be hosts and panelists, actually. Maybe
I can add it in.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Hannah. Thanks. We discussed the youth position at Tripoli, thinking again about the sort of payment and stipend that the city does, and we know that's especially relevant for potential youth, sort of trying to fill these youth positions, which are I think even harder to fill than our normal positions. So we know that the city has a stipend option for the city appointed commission members, but the county does not. And actually, maybe this is a good moment to sort of ask Heidi while she's here if there are any updates. We know we discussed that, and I remember last we heard it was something that the county commissioners were interested in hearing about, or interested in sort of having happen, like making it possible that the county could offer stipends to the county appointed positions as well. Are there any updates on that on your end, or is it still kind of pending?
Yes, there is an update. I was going to let you know this.
Yeah, maybe I jumped the gun, sorry.
Dates, but now's a good time. Yeah, we included funding in this budget. We approved last Monday night for stipends to achieve parity, basically, with the city. You know, for service for people on all of the joint city county commissions, and I think looking to expand that to all of our so yes, indeed. Okay. Good job. Thank you for advocating for that. Thanks for raising it in the first place, and your advocacy was successful.
Wonderful to hear it, Heidi. That's faster turnaround than I think a lot of things we brought up before. So
well, it should be. It was fairly fairly small.
It's cut and dry. Thanks so much, Heidi. Yeah, that's great. We'll get back to if you have further updates in a moment.
Okay.
Thanks. So that's great. So that maybe adjusts a little bit of the conversations I guess Triple E was having about how we can market the youth position. Because I think that, again, we can talk more about the details of what comes out of the county's update, but parity there will be good, I think, and we can start to advertise that as part of the benefits of being on the commission, or at least not even a benefit, as a way to make it easier. We know that it's a time commitment for folks, and we want people with, who need to have someone take care of their child, or need someone to help make dinner, whatever it is, 7 to 9 p.m. on a Tuesday is not an easy time for everybody. So this will hopefully help. The Great Trail Day event was, what was that, June 10th? Yeah, Saturday. Ed and I were there, so I think there was some, and Hannah, of course, was there. Jeff stopped by at the beginning as well. So there was just some discussion about that. It was a successful day in my book. Ed, if you have anything to add, feel free. But I thought it was
we had to talk to a lot of people about BPAC and about engaging with service animals, or not engaging with service animals, and people seemed appreciative of the opportunity to speak with us. I think a bunch of people signed up for the BPAC mailing list, and some kids walked away with little plushies of service dogs, and I appreciated BPAC's support of that, and the opportunity to kind of educate the public about working dogs. So yeah, it was a success.
Yeah, thanks, Ed, for bringing that up this was a couple months ago, I think, right? And that was good and impetus, and yeah, I'm glad we were able to sort of put that together. The side effects are we do have some plushies for future events. Those are, I think, pretty attractive for children. They definitely come by and take a look and see, how can I get one of these plushies? And yeah, I think one interesting note, I guess, on my end is just, it seems like anybody, almost like 90% of folks who come to a table that says BPAC on it will put their name down and sign up for an email, like to get emails. There's a lot of interest, and I think Durham, as you all know, is growing. A lot of new folks who moved into town, a few months ago, want us to sort of help make Durham a better place for them. So anyway, I think that's a sort of a data point in favor of being at these events and sort of having a presence where we can. There's a walk audit that we did for the commission retreat back in January. So Suzanne did a nice job of putting together kind of an initial draft of kind of takeaways from that walk audit. We talked with Brian Taylor, Hannah, Suzanne, and I discussed the sort of what we could do next to make that presentation as useful as possible. Sort of the takeaways from that walk audit as useful as possible. Brian presented some really sort of a good structure for what he thought would be actually a really kind of useful way to present the data, or like kind of present our takeaways. So our next steps are to put that together. So we'll be talking about that at a future Triple E meeting, kind of the revised draft there. There'll be the Healthy Mile Trail. I think there's going to be some follow-up there for volunteering in some future events with them. And then there will be no Triple E meeting in July. Folks who aren't aware, we don't have a BPAC full commission meeting in July. And the subcommittees can sort of choose whether to meet or not. Triple E will not be meeting in July, so the next meeting will be in August for Triple E. Anything, Ed, Hannah, anyone else who was there who wants to chime in? Anything I might have missed for Triple E?
I think you hit the high points just fine.
Good. I ignored all the problematic points. Right? Good. I'm glad. Yeah, and I think, okay, so for Pi, oh yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
I was going to say one thing that we talked about at the end was t-shirts. And so right now we have some money through a company. I was able to get a refund for stickers that we had purchased because they didn't come in time for the Great Trails Day event. And so we have some money. We have $175, and the thought is maybe we could do t-shirts for everyone on the commission. And so that's something that at least Triple E we want to look into more and kind of figure out. But I don't know if anyone on the commission likes t-shirts. I personally love them. And so it might be something fun to kind of come up with a design. I don't know if anyone on the commission is good with graphic design. I know in the past, I guess, Dale said that even the BPAC logo was developed by someone on the commission. So if anyone does have any type of graphic design skills and would be willing or excited to create some type of design for a t-shirt, definitely let us know. And we'll talk more about it in the next couple of weeks because we have to use that money by September. So
good to know that. So that, to be clear, that's separate from additional funding that we're getting as a commission. This is just to use a credit we have now with this website that makes t-shirts. Great.
And that was one thing I wanted to ask Heidi. So the city gives the grant, the $1,000 to the commission. And so I didn't know if y'all had talked at all about on the county side of providing a grant that's similar, or was it just the stipends?
We have not talked about that. I didn't realize that. Certainly something that I can raise. It would be interesting to look across all our commissions again and see where are the city and the county not doing the same things for their members. So this is yet another example, I guess, of that.
Yeah, and I think it's a
That's
yearly.
what I hear you saying, Hannah.
Yeah.
So it's like your budget. The city gives $1,000 for budget.
Exactly. Each fiscal year you have $1,000. So we used it on food for the retreat, and then to buy a table to be able to do some of the outreach events, and we got stickers, and then we bought those plushies. Because without that, I guess in the past, BPAC would have to do a lot of fundraisers, and Bill had said it was really difficult at times to be able to get money, but
yeah, well, I'm happy to take that forward as well if you'd like.
I think we've also used it for guest speakers in the past as well, for public events. Yeah.
Wasn't it the Black Girls Do Bike was last year's public speaker?
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if, in the city sort of division of labor, city and counties division of labor, which is, somewhat artificially imposed. But if it has passed historically when these commissions were established that, BPAC is really mostly about transportation. And so that's going to be, more of a city responsibility. And maybe there's some other joint commissions that are more of a county responsibility, although no one is coming to mind at this moment that we hold jointly. So I don't know what the history on that is, but I'm happy to take it forward and see if there's, an interest in providing some budgetary annual funding for BPAC to match that of the city. I'm happy to take that forward.
Thanks, Heidi. I appreciate it. Just to be clear, I think that that sort of initial discrepancy of the stipend being different is really that definitely a higher priority, in that wanting to make sure that within the commission there's not an inequity, right, of sort of benefits. And I think the city, I actually didn't miss, maybe I missed, Hannah, if this is what you were getting at, but the city also provides a yearly gift for its commission members. It's separate from the budget, right? So it's.
We do too. We do that
okay,
too.
Okay.
We do the same thing. We have an event.
Okay. I wouldn't know.
For what it's worth.
I'm not county appointed, so I don't know. That's good to know. Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay, that's good. So that if there's internal, I think that's my highest priority personally. I'll speak for myself. The internal sort of making sure everybody's being treated equally inside of the commission, and then of course if there's how the commission is benefited by the county and the city. Be interested to hear what the reasoning is for the differences there. But yeah. Thanks, Hannah. That's a good point. Bring up we'll talk more about the t-shirts. Maybe we can start an email chain if folks have thoughts or ideas. So yeah, let's move to PI. So I know also, I'll throw it out there, the new business items I think are kind of relate to our PI and DevRev updates, but we can start with updates and just see how it goes. Mike Mormon, you want to go ahead with PI?
Now that I'm unmuted, maybe that'll work better.
Nice.
We covered just a few things. Some took a lot of time. First of all, we had Dr. Apur, it's a little hard to say his name, who is interested in access points in Woodcroft, along Woodcroft Parkway, actually near Wood Lake. And he had talked to us before, and we kind of said, talk to your neighbors and find out what kind of support and what they want. So he came back and gave a really good presentation on the points that he found his neighbors wanted, which he said, actually, their emphasis was a little different than his, but he reported it as they gave it to him. And basically, it was access to Piney Woods Park, which almost touches his community. It's short about, 50 yards of sidewalk and a way to get across Woodcroft Parkway, which is a challenge, supposedly a slow neighborhood street, but not in reality. So he brought that up as one of the issues, traffic calming on that and a way to get across it. Another was access to the Perkins Fruit Stand, which is on Barbie Road. If you ever drive down Barbie Road, it is a major place where people stop and get fruit. And of course, it's on the opposite side of the road. Barbie Road has exactly the same problem. People go way too fast. So again, it's crossing and some sort of traffic calming. And finally, what initially was why he brought this to us was a way to get from their community out to essentially the American Tobacco Trail to get to Fayetteville Road. The last piece of Woodcroft Parkway along there is narrow. There's no bike amenities or pretty much other than a dirt path, any place for passenger or for pedestrians to go. So that was what he presented to us. Brian Taylor gave some really good suggestions on things that could be done in the short term and maybe as part of long-term plans. So that's kind of where we left it at that point. Then we spent almost the rest of the meeting talking about the issue of how I say that as Dennis's problem, as it kind of falls into his lap, are going to organize DevRev and PI. And kind of what came out of that was the idea that we need to have two separate committees, and they need to have a chair and a vice chair so that they can function. And periodically, they really need a scribe because there's a lot going on that the person conducting the meeting can't capture, at least not efficiently. So that was one of the fallouts. Another was that we really need a good description of what the chair's job is, because we need to recruit 2 new chairs. And that should be something that doesn't involve doing the entire work of the committee, which I think, especially for Dan, has spent a lot of his effort in doing the reviews and getting that all together so that we could talk about it at the committee meeting. And we kind of came up with the idea that what really needed to happen was a particular review needed to be assigned to a particular member, and they would do that on their own time whenever, and come back and just report to the committee as a whole. And then the results could progress from that. So that was put out there as one of the ideas. And that was pretty much the idea. The only other thing that we had on that had to do with, as far as PI, the idea of keeping a good watch on the paving operations, which came up earlier, trying to stay abreast at least of what was coming up and be able to respond to it. And also the major road issues such as the US 70, I called it reimagining. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out, but there's certainly a lot of attention that needs to be paid to that. And the same thing is coming up again on 15501. Just beginning to, the details creep out. It's almost like the NCDOT's keeping it a secret until the last moment. But they did do a lot of work on it before, and I'm trying to get my notes from that so I can put them on the Google site that Hannah has put up for us, so that the stuff we did before at least is out there and you can work on it from there on. And we made a very quick look at Hardy Road and some of the issues there, and Dennis took that and created really a good response on terms of what would really be good as part of that, essentially restriping as I guess coming up in the very immediate future. One other thing I'd like to throw out that we didn't get to in the meeting, however, it's worth noting, and the rest of you might want to consider looking at it. At one point, we looked at a paper street that went from Henson Drive, this is in Bragtown, went from Henson Drive across Glenbrook. The connection was Henson Drive and Glenbrook, and then it crossed through this undeveloped area that like I said, was a paper street to Maynard Avenue, which gave that whole side of that community access to Roxborough Road, which once you get across that, there are all kinds of amenities, museums, parks, you name it. And that half of that community is cut off from it unless you go down to very busy streets, which you wouldn't want to do on a bike and probably wouldn't want to do as a pedestrian either. Anyway, right at that point where Glenbrook Road and Henson meet, there is a project in its fourth state of design, meaning pretty much all the way through, for 72 new units to appear in some land that's just back from that intersection, which means there's 72 new families or whatever that are going to have that same problem of getting over to the other side of the community. So it might be a good reason for looking at that paper street as some kind of connection. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'll note that. What was the paper street? Like the Henson to Roxborough, is that what it was?
The paper street goes from Glenbrook, I guess that, yeah, Glenbrook across to Maynard, and Henson intersects Glenbrook right at that spot.
Okay. Thank you. I'll also just note for the Hardy Street comments, Mary Rose also did some sort of nice sketching on documents there to show how potentially the curb radii could be reduced and some more crosswalks added. That was really useful in providing comments back to Leslie Tracy there. So thanks to her for that. Thanks, Mike. I'll take this moment. We're going to talk more about PI and DevRev, I think, but just take this moment to say this, I think, was your last month with Pi and with us, it seems like. So just, yeah, we're sort of, as you can tell, we're trying to figure out what to do without you. So I appreciate all your work and help with Pi over my whole period on BPAC, and we're just learning from you here. So thank you, and we'll talk more about how we can get any last knowledge out of you, but don't be a stranger, as I said in our committee meeting. Thanks again, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I learned today that actually if nobody applies for that role, Michael, you would be able to still stay in it until it's filled. So I don't know if you want to continue to stay on, but it is an option for right now. So
this is like you can kind of,
we'll talk.
Some corruption can happen here. You know, we could obstruct people from applying and Mike stays on forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not in the spirit of the bylaws, but yeah. Good to know, Hannah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so yeah, you hinted, Mike, at a few things about the chair positions and how we can divide up roles there. We'll talk about that in a moment. Dan, I'll let you take on Dev Rev, and we can kind of move through that to talking about the committees overall.
Yeah, not much of an update there. We had planned to talk with Alexander Cahill from the planning department, but he wasn't able to attend. He said he could probably join us in July, if I'm not mistaken, Hannah. I think he responded. So really most of the time we were really kind of just talking about what we're going to talk about later on. That's just the future of the two committees, subcommittees. So it's really spent a lot of time talking about that, a little bit about the development plan out in Virgil Road. And it looks like, and then there was it's like multiplex. There's one that's right next to it. And I think there were some comments. Yeah, Olive Branch and Virgil. I think there were some comments submitted for that, but they're kind of right next to each other, and there were some possibilities to, I believe, to explore, I guess, getting a trail connection from one to the other, because one of them had a trail corridor that was supposed to go through it, and then there was one next to it, and maybe there's a way to connect the one that was farther away to the other one, but we didn't really finish that. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like there were some comments submitted, but I don't know, Hannah, if that's still pending. But
yeah, I think we put together sort of just the comments that we kind of discussed loosely that meeting, and Hannah, were those able to be submitted to?
Yeah, I submitted all of the ones that were in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Oh,
so
good. Okay.
It was, I think, 3 in total.
But that's pretty much it for the Development Review Committee. Looks like the PI committee had a lot more to do this month. So
thanks, Dan. And yeah, so we'll talk about kind of development review and how we'll kind of talk. There's an agenda item for that, so we'll step into that in a moment. Just to get through all these updates, we can. Sorry, checking the agenda. Yeah, so Javier's not here. It sounds like she's at maybe the meeting that was mentioned earlier today. Any updates that you received from Javier, Hannah? Okay, I think the only thing I heard, anyway, she's in conversation with Brandon Jones I forget actually honestly why. I just kind of heard this from her directly, that she's talking with Brandon Jones, who works in our district with the NCDOT, and I think we'll hopefully have an opportunity to get Brandon Jones to come present for BPAC. So we might be able to talk with him directly and sort of, I think we have a lot of questions and thoughts about NCDOT, so it might be an opportunity to engage those questions probably later this fall, it sounds like. So we'll have that conversation. That conversation has started, so Brandon's aware that we'll be reaching out to him. And that's the only sort of update that I've gotten from Javier, to my knowledge. Heidi, yeah, so we got some good news already. Anything you'd like to add from the county commissioners?
Yeah, just quickly, I'd like to add that we approved 2 major transit plans or programs at our past Monday night meeting. First of all, the Durham County Transit Plan for the next 20 years has been approved by the Board of Commissioners. I believe it's been approved by the MPO, and it either has been approved or it will go before the Doe Triangle Board as well. for approval. But you know, this was the plan to replace the one that we had adopted in 2017 that included the Durham Orange Light Rail. So this is the new plan that has been driven by extensive public engagement, which yielded a lot of feedback from bus drivers in particular that helped with the priorities that ended up being in this plan. And basically the plan focuses on improving the current bus system, providing a better experience at all of our bus stops and stations, connecting to the region with some sort of quick and reliable service, and implementing all of these improvements faster. So the new transit program for fiscal year 24 was also approved. And that is the annual approval that we make for the expenditures that are going to happen out of the larger transit plan this year. And so, you know, we bring in about $42 million in the half-cent sales for transit tax and then the other funding sources, but mostly it's the half-cent sales tax. And 27 million of that will be spent next year of the 42 million. And here are some of the items that we're spending it on. A transit tracker, which I'm very excited about, with some reporting metrics, which will allow the public and elected officials to have greater ability to monitor the progress of the projects that are in the transit program. There's over $10 million are invested $10 million that the Durham County is, you know, giving to the city. There are fairly, and anything we do transit related, and then they will implement those projects. More than 75 bus stop improvements have been committed to by Go Triangle, and this is a tremendous increase from the current number that are being done. And partly that's going to be able to happen because Go Triangle requested 2 full-time equivalent positions for capital administrators to help make sure those projects happen. And so the county is also funding that. We're including funding for a food access shuttle for seniors, Durham Station improvements, paratransit improvements, and very excitingly, there will be rapid transit, and that study will begin this year. So there's a lot in this work program, and I think that the community should feel very pleased with it and proud of what you know, community participation ended up bringing forward as priorities that have been included. So that's about it. We also did approve an $890 million county budget as well last Monday night, including a 3-cent tax increase, 1.5 cents of which will go towards funding Durham Public Schools, Durham Technical Community College, and the capital projects that were approved in the November 2022 bond referendum, and then another 1.5 cent tax increase for other expenditure increases that we need to make, mostly for employee compensation, including raising the minimum wage for Durham County employees to $19.22, which I'm very pleased about.
Wow.
So that's about it. More than usual, actually, from Durham County.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, that's a lot there. That's really great. Yeah, I'm excited. The minimum wage would be fantastic. And of course, the transit plan, yeah, we've been sort of curious to hear about that. And as it gets updated, that's a lot of good stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you very well may want to invite Ellen Beckman back. She can give fantastic presentations on both of these plans and programs. She does a great job of really including the lots of information in a very focused and accessible way.
Got it. That's great suggestion. Yeah. And okay. Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Mayma asked another question regarding the sidewalk gap. We were told that the land was bought from Durham County. Okay, so I think you're still asking about the sidewalk gap that I'm still aware of. We're going to get to that. I'm sorry to be punting that just past these community updates. Mayma, just give us a couple more minutes here. So we don't have a Duke University representative right now. Hopefully, after this month, we'll hear an update on that from the applications that were submitted there. No, our NC Central University representative is not currently attending, so no updates that I'm aware of there. Hannah, is that right? No updates on your end?
Updates.
And for the comprehensive plan, so I'll actually give a quick update here. It's not from any meetings regarding the comp plan, but I just wanted to represent a conversation that had happened over sort of between the DOST chair and John Talmadge at Bike Durham, and I think Jeff is with us on our commission, and he's also on DOST, Open Space and Trails Commission. I think there was a conversation being had, and I think DOST tomorrow is going to submit some comments about the definition of safety and making an action item in the comp plan to help define safe. And safe is used, I believe, I'm a little out of context on the conversation, but it's used to describe a policy that says all Durham residents should be within a 10-minute safe walk of a public park, I believe was the sort of main one, but safe is used in a few different policies, but it's not explicitly defined. And I was some concern about defining that more explicitly. Some thoughts were thrown around. I just wanted to make sure that the folks on BPAC were aware. DOST tomorrow, in their monthly meeting, will be talking about this and probably voting to send comments to about the comp plan, so to add an action item to the comprehensive plan draft. So that's just my context. So if you have opinions about that, feel free to step into their meeting tomorrow and sort of ask any questions. Jeff, is that fair? Do you have any other context that I'm missing on that?
No, I think that's a good summary. Of course, we could spend whole meeting talking about defining safe and how it should apply, but it's a topic that it's like an onion. You just keep taking layer after layer, and there's more of it.
And I think DOST has a good grapple on what they want to. So I kind of expect them to do a good job, and hopefully they'll keep us in the loop if they have sort of further actions they're trying to take to make sure that this is done more explicitly in the comp.
Well, I'll make sure that I keep you in the loop.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my goals serving on both commissions is to keep the other one informed of what they're each doing.
Yeah, I think that's, and you offered that before, and I really appreciate that. I think it'll be a good boon for both of our commissions to be able to bounce off each other a little bit more actively than before. And then Ideal's not here, but Ed, any updates on the comp plan on your end?
No, nothing new since the last meeting. It's just rolling towards, I believe, a date in August for a joint city council county commission approval hearing.
Great, thank you, Ed. And so I think this sort of has been an agenda item for a long time, a couple of years now, and we'll see. Hopefully later this year we might have some votes that it's always evolving, the comp plan, but I think we maybe we'll phase into it, sort of move to a new phase of thinking about the comp plan, not as drafts, but as actually approved.
Yeah, we've been doing it since I think the summer of 2019.
Yeah, I only spoke for the time I've been on the commission, but that's even longer than I've been on. So yeah, thanks, Ed, for all the work and on that.
Sure thing.
All right. Okay, so let's see. We got 20 minutes here. So I have some community updates. So Mayma asked, what is the comp plan? So the comp plan is it's short for the comprehensive plan. And here's a good test name, oh gosh. It's the City of Durham sort of plan for how they expect the city to grow or how they would like sort of have, I think it's a 20 to 25 year horizon usually. And it's mainly sort of writing out what are the sorts of things we want to see in Durham over the next 20 to 25, 30 years. And so a lot of there's like a transportation section, there's a neighborhood section, housing section. So there's different sort of policy groups, and it's a chance for, there was a lot of engagement done over multiple years, a lot of back and forth to try to define what the policies should be that kind of convey our priorities, right? So on BPAC, it's a lot of things about making our streets more safer to walk and bike on, making it easier to, making more bike lanes, right? Making it easier to get to a grocery store, making it sort of more convenient to live without a car. Those are sort of the high level, I think, of a lot of the things that we prioritize on BPAC, but there are a lot of different parties with a lot of different sort of hopes about what Durham should be like in the future. So it's a lot about land use, how we want to use our land and how we want to guide new developments and new projects in Durham. Now that was very broad strokes from somebody who doesn't work professionally in this space. Any other additions to that about what is a comp plan? I didn't do too poorly then. Okay. So the community updates I have, I just want to go through them because I've sort of been on, we've talked about it at committee meetings a little bit, but I stopped by I was at a couple conferences this past month. One was Strong Towns. Brian Taylor was there. Well, Brian Taylor came, I believe, for the CNU, the Congress of the New Urbanism, which was in Charlotte right after the Strong Towns conference, which was in Charlotte. So for those who don't know, Strong Towns is an organization started by Charles Marone, whose second book was part of our reading club a few months back, Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. And I'm happy to answer questions or discuss it more in committee meetings, but the main takeaway I thought was something, a sort of interesting agenda or a goal of the Strong Towns organization that could be relevant for us, is they seem to really be prioritizing what they call the crash analysis studio, which is essentially this sort of attempt to reimagine or sort of recontextualize how we talk and think about crashes, right? So no longer when a car hits a pedestrian do we say, oh, was it, the goal of this is to no longer say, oh, was it a walk signal? Was it a red light or a green light? Then just assign blame accordingly and kind of wipe your hands clean and move on. The goal is to sort of rethink about this as a design problem, right? Like what about the street? We all know this, of course, I think here, but what about the street's design led to this being likelier to happen than in most or in some other places? And so Strong Towns is kind of taking in input from, like, if there's a crash that happens in Durham, in theory, we could submit to their crash analysis studio and they would run an analysis, which involves like engaging with people sort of in Durham and identifying like neighborhood sort of community members who might have things to say about that street and what its state is and whether it's a safe place for non-cars, for pedestrians or cyclists. And then also even talking about potentially like litigating cities, right? Saying things down the line to the effect of, well, we know that streets designed this way lead to deaths. And we want to, both in terms of insurance and in terms of litigation, reflect that so that the cities have a little bit more of an incentive directly to prevent these issues and actively sort of take action after these issues occur or these crashes occur. So that's a kind of roundabout way, but I just thought it was really interesting. It's something that we talk about in Durham because we've had a few crashes over the last few months that have been really sort of tragic and horrifying. And there's a mechanism for us, even not necessarily through Strong Towns, but to think about doing crash analyses ourselves. And maybe there's a time in a sort of future committee meeting to try that, to sort of think about a crash that's happened. I know we talk about NC 54, and I'll say more about that in a moment, but where the tobacco trail crosses NC 54 by Highgate. That's a place that the crash has occurred. We've had good discussions about it here, what could be done. We know there's one good intervention that could be done to reduce a lane there on the sort of north side of that intersection. But anyway, so I just wanted to communicate that. was one takeaway from the Strong Towns Conference. I also was at the Vision Zero Institute, which was a kind of gathering at UNC Chapel Hill for, there were a bunch of different teams from around the state representing kind of different cities and towns. And so the Durham team, I was on the Durham team, I guess, in a way representing the sort of advocates, so BPAC and other non-professionals, honestly. Everyone else was sort of members of staff or organizations within Durham. So there was member Colleen McHugh from the NPO, Leslie Tracy from Durham Transportation, Ryan Eldridge from the county, Miles Spann, who works on community engagement with Durham, and Amber Taylor, actually with the Healthy Mile Trail folks. She was there as well. So that was the Durham team. We had some good discussions about Vision Zero. We heard some updates about the coordinator. Sort of just wanted to kind of get you all in terms of up to date on what I understand. I believe the role is going to be filled probably by the fall, is kind of the timeline that Leslie Tracy was sort of giving there. It's not, to me, obviously clear what that role's responsibilities are going to be out of the gate. They will sit kind of independent from these. We kind of saw it in the org chart. They're not in a specific team. They're kind of a team of their own, the Vision Zero coordinator. So hopefully that's some freedom to move between teams and sort of work, bridge the gaps, right? Because we know that Vision Zero is not just a planning problem or just a transportation problem. And it also finance also obviously we need money to build build Vision Zero related projects. So hopefully they'll be able to move within the teams, but hopefully that won't backfire and have them also be sort of unable to get as much done. So I just want to keep an eye on that Vision Zero role and how that's sort of pans out. A couple other quick updates from the Vision Zero Institute. Raleigh, so the folks in Raleigh that we kind of met, we were in the room with a few other teams, and the Raleigh folks were in one of the rooms with the Durham team for a while. So we had a few conversations, and their sort of Vision Zero take, from my understanding, and this is really all my perspective, I'll say that, was that they really are focused on low-hanging fruit. And I mean the lowest hanging fruit in that they will do, they'll find signal timing issues, right? If there's anywhere in Raleigh where they can improve the signal timing to make it safer to cross, that's kind of what they're aiming for, right? So another example is with NCDOT. They are applying sort of vigorously for what they call spot safety projects, I believe. And NCDOT, they're competitive to get funding for, but NCDOT apparently tends to approve those because they don't sort of impact level of service as much because they're usually just at one intersection, maybe making the crosswalks more visible, what have you, things like that. So Raleigh, it's an interesting, it just felt to me a little bit like there might be some stuff that we could learn, and I will stay in touch with them about can they sort of, are there guidelines, are there sort of ways that they go about finding the simplest projects to take on and get the sort of nearest wins, the sort of quickest wins that they can to make Raleigh safer. I don't know, I can't speak to how successful necessarily they are with that strategy, but it seems like a good sort of perspective to learn from. And then one last thing, so I mentioned 54 because that was actually, we were talking about quick build projects at this institute. So it was 2 days, and the second day was all about what is a demonstration project or a quick build project that we could take on in Durham in the spirit of Vision Zero, right? A Vision Zero sort of a safety related project. And we discussed a number of things, and actually 54 at the American Tobacco Trail was one that Leslie Tracy thought, even though it's a state-owned road, so we know the sort of, sometimes there are struggles with any modifications there. She thought that it was a good opportunity potentially to move forward with a demonstration project there. I think it sounded a little bit to me like she thought that NCDOT might be okay with trying something like removing a lane for a week, and then we could measure the speeds to see, how does that impact speeds? How does that impact safety for crossing? And does that not hurt throughput for cars? And if it doesn't hurt throughput for cars, Leslie Tracy seemed a little bit optimistic about the potential of that being something that NCDOT would be kind of amenable to. I don't know how much that's the case, but we talked about that. So I just wanted to make sure that BPAC was aware, like a lot of that stuff that I've talked about with Mike and the folks on PI I try to bring that to that conversation with Leslie and the Durham team. I don't know what the follow-up will be, but it's something I think for our committee members to keep prodding on, and I'll try to sort of follow up with Leslie Tracy probably next month to see if there's going to be an opportunity to do that, which is essentially to take away one of the northbound lanes, one of the receiving lanes on the north side of that NC 54 and Highgate intersection where the Tobacco Trail crosses, just for a few hundred feet, just because it's kind of ambiguous, right? Anyway, we don't have to rehash that whole intersection, but that was, I think, interesting. Maybe that'll be something that can happen, and maybe we should push on that as a commission, just to make sure that they don't lose track of that project. And we know NC 54 is getting repaved later this, I don't know when, but it's supposedly happening within the next year. So that could be an opportunity to do this trial project. Okay, any questions about that? I just wanted to run through it. I know that was a lot. Thanks, Hannah. Yeah. Okay.
Just the organization piece. I know that was kind of a big topic for both DevRev and Pi, so it'd be good to focus.
Yeah. So let's jump into that. So the organization, I'm going to do my sort of summary of what I think the takeaways were, but folks who are at those meetings can kind of let me know if this doesn't mesh correctly with what they were thinking. But so I think the DevRev and Pi responsibility split, it kind of makes sense to me or I think to us, it made sense that we would have a separate meeting times, back to having a DevRev meeting and back to having a Pi meeting. So maybe and I think there'll be a lot of overlap still, but really trying to just focus on one sort of set of agenda items, right, per meeting. So that in that vein, the DevRev meeting would also, hopefully the idea is that we would actually be assigning folks plans to review and to come into the meeting having reviewed a plan. So that was something that came out of our last meeting, kind of Pi DevRev meeting, talking about, okay, you know, we need to kind of apply the bandwidth of our committee members to help review these plans, and we can do that actually before the meeting. To that effect, I am still working on kind of a worksheet that Dan and I and a number of us have kind of hashed out over the last year of how to review these plans and wanting to build that out a little bit more explicitly. And so we'll have updates on that probably in the next couple of weeks. But is that a fair reflection of what we were talking about? Pi will have its own meeting where there'll be more about public comments, more about public sort of city and county projects. And that'll be a separate meeting from DevRev, where it'll be mostly about corralling the comments that folks have made reviewing plans before the DevRev meeting. Is that a fair reflection, Hannah and Mike and Jeff?
I think so. And one of the things we talked about for DevRev is looking at possibly have in-person meetings, because it's just when you're reviewing plans, if there's, you know, the paper version of it in front of everyone on the table, it's kind of a lot quicker than reviewing it, you know, looking at a browser.
I think that's right. And that's something that as we transition to new chairs, I think it'll be kind of a moment to sort of think about those new forms of meeting.
Is it possible to get paper copies of development plans?
That's a good question.
Because it used to be the norm. That's what we did all the time, was lug around these huge papers. But yeah, because I agree. I'm sorry, Hannah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think you would have to print them from box.com.
Okay.
I mean, Dan, I'm kind of going back to my first go around on BPAC, which was 2012, 2013, where that's exactly what we did. You know, Dale would bring in this big paper, basically blueprint size plan, and it was so much more efficient to do it that way. So I guess we have to look at the logistics of getting them printed. And, but, you know, I think it's worth exploring, since I think it'd be more efficient time-wise to do that.
But that's if you want to review them in person.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and try it and see if it works better. And if it doesn't, we can go back to staying remote and having people review them on their own before the meeting and then come in with comments.
I think one opportunity we have is if Alexander, it sounds like that. So the first Thursday of July, July 6th, I think that's right, is when we'll have the DevRev meeting in July. So we will have a DevRev meeting in July. I think this will be an opportunity to talk with Alexander, get our thoughts together finally, kind of like we have a lot of sort of ideas and kind of make sure that it bounces off Alexander Cahill and make sure that they make sense to him too. And we can flesh that sort of next sort of process out for DevRev. I'll probably send an email out before then, because I know some folks were like ready to review plans. So maybe we can just try to review a couple plans before that meeting and see how we feel, right? With just going through a worksheet. So I'll send an email out before that meeting. But I think anyone who has opinions about how DevRev can operate, and I know some folks expressed sort of interest and willingness to help review plans, like it would be great to have you at the July 6th meeting. I think that'll be a good opportunity, and one of Dan's final DevRev meetings as well. So so let's focus on that for that sort of next DevRev meeting, I think. For Pi, Mike was mentioning like having a role for the chair role be a little bit more explicitly administrative. And I think that's sort of what the goal is. So this is a moment here to say, is there anybody like that would like to take on a Pi chair role that involves more of the following, right? It's more about showing up to the meeting, putting the agenda together before the meeting, and kind of making sure we know at the end of the meeting whether we need to have a follow-up of any sort. And I think it's the kind of thing that it doesn't need to be somebody, the role of chair of Pi doesn't have to be somebody who knows how to review plans necessarily or knows a lot about planning, but more just about sort of being there at the meeting and being able to kind of administrate the meeting, and then find somebody else if they're not able to make it who can do that for them. Is there anyone here that would be kind of willing to take that on? And we can talk more about it, but I'd be curious if folks would rather do Pi administration rather than say review development plans, right? If you feel like, oh, I'd rather set up agendas and kind of help run meetings for Pi, that could be a better use of my energy than reviewing plans with DevRev. Any thoughts on that from folks here? I also know we are limited today. So one other thing, and I'm kind of bouncing around these agenda items, but so mostly the folks here I know are quite present at our meetings. We don't have, are we still at a quorum? Honestly, we're like barely at a quorum here. So I think there's a little bit to be said about kind of having commission members being able to find the time. I mean, to come to this meeting, of course, is the most important, but to, in addition to that, also come to our committee meetings and put in some work on the committees as well. There might be some ways that we look into restructuring that. I think this agenda item there was just to say, for me to state explicitly that we would like for folks to kind of put in some work outside of just the 2-hour meeting, right? That's just making that explicit today here. And I know it's not easy, and I know that work ebbs and flows. And so sometimes you might say, I can do work, but then for 6 months you can't. And that's okay. But kind of actively inviting folks, especially after our July break, I think, to kind of re-look at August and say, all right, we're gonna have to have new chairs, we're gonna have to have a new makeup of sort of commission and committee members. Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here, but we will make that more explicit for the whole commission as well. I think we'll talk more about how to do that over the next month. One thing that was brought up, which was good, was adding a question to our application where folks have to explain or kind of give at least some justification or some thought into why they think they have the time to put to this commission, right? Even if we're not the ones reviewing the applications, the city and the county folks do that, but at least those who apply would have to sort of come face that reality and sort of explain it to themselves on their application. Sorry, any other thoughts on that? Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, one of the points that came up was the idea that maybe the explanation of what a position on BPAC entailed, rather than just saying, oh, you have to, at the minimum, come to this 1-2-hour meeting, that in fact, a description of each of the subcommittees and say, this is where the work is done. We expect that you would like to sign up for one of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's something that
Yeah.
hopefully, Hannah, we can discuss, at the sort of next committee meetings.
Yeah, and I think when the bylaws open up for changing them, we can definitely put some language in there. But I think, yeah, just having more involvement in the committee meetings is really important. And also, like, terms are a long time, they're 3 years. And so if something comes up and people aren't able to be as engaged, they can always resign and come back. Because there are a lot of people who want to be on the commission. And so it's not really fair to the whole commission if there's some people who just aren't showing up at all. So I think kind of want to throw that out there too. Again, preaching to the choir though, y'all are doing great, but it's just good to kind of keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is by making it sound like it's optional, anything other than the main meeting. We kind of devalue the commission. In retail, there's a reason why a lot of items are priced very high, because if something's priced low, the perception is it's not very high quality. So I think if we advertise to people that, oh, you just have to go to one meeting a month, we kind of make the commission's value seem less. If we actually say to people, you're required, if you're going to serve on this commission, to put in 4 to 6 hours a month on average. We all know that life comes up and, you get a month that you're not going to be available. But I think we have to, stress to people that you need to do some work if you want to be on this commission, that this is an important commission, almost to the point where we're not going to let anyone just be on the commission. You have to earn a spot on this commission. This is not a meaningless body. This is an important body for the city and county of Durham. And if you want the privilege of being on BPAC, then you have to earn it, and that requires some work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right, Jeff. And I'm going to wrap up here. The July meetings, I just want to make that clear. We have July 6th, DevRev. That'll be a kind of placeholder pie, I think, because we won't have a pie chair at that point. And I'll take on that sort of administrative sort of role for now. That's totally fine. But I want folks to keep that in mind. Like, I think it's either helping with development review or helping with EEE or helping with a pie. And so if pie is the one for you, help out, and we can, it should be a pretty light load just to do the administrative stuff. The heavy stuff is reviewing the plans. So July 6th is DevRev. We'll skip the reviewing presentation topics for now. Ellen Beckman's a good addition to that. I'll add that after. Mema, I know we were talking, so I want to just for the record say we've received your email. I am currently reviewing all the information that I've gotten both from you and from other folks about that corridor or that sort of sidewalk gap. I mean, yeah, sidewalk gaps are important to us. You have your hand raised here. I'd be happy to talk a little bit more right now, but I do think that it'd actually be better served if you're willing to come to our July 6th meeting, or actually, I'll even set up maybe a time to talk with you separately. But at the very least, you can come to our July 6th meeting. And I'd like a little bit more time to review your email and the sort of information I've gotten about that sidewalk gap on Farrington Road. Let me know. Feel free to throw in the Q&A if you have any thoughts about that right now. If you do want to discuss it, we can talk offline. Hannah, could you send my email? I'm going to put it here, but
Sure.
She already has it. Well, no, she emailed here, I'll just throw it in here.
Okay.
So the meeting will be on Zoom again. And so if you can actually, Mema, if you could throw your email into the Q&A, just for the record, we can make sure that you receive that email invite to the next committee meeting.
And it might be good for them to attend the PI meeting, not the DevRev one, just because this is more of an issue related to PI, not specifically the development review, but.
Yeah, and that's where, I'm not sure we'll do a PI in July, so that's where, okay. Yeah, but we'll email you whichever one we end up doing in July for PI. If it's PI, we'll have you come to the PI one, but maybe we'll keep you in the loop. Thanks for sending your email. I will copy that for myself as well, just to make sure I have it. All right, folks. Bounced around at the end there. Thanks for letting me give my updates from the conferences. I just wanted to make sure that BPAC knew I was doing a little bit of representing the commission there. Anything else before we sign off? Mike, thanks. Thanks for everything. That's all I have before we sign off. Thanks for all your work, and please don't be a stranger.
You're welcome. Thank you. If I can throw out one other thing, that is, it's important for the entire commission to spread the work out, because otherwise people who spend a lot of time doing stuff really eventually get burned out. And I know Dennis has been doing an amazing amount of stuff right now, and he really does need help. That's why we have a commission.
Well, just following you and Dan's footsteps, and Suzanne before, she's not here today, but yeah, you all have been doing great work. And I know, everyone here doing really good work, and I appreciate everybody just shows up to those committee meetings and even just listens. So thank you, Mike, for being an example. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
5 minutes over. We'll take it. We'll take it. Good night, everybody.